Always appreciate a visit from sports director from Pig Trail Nation, Alyssa Orange, with us each Tuesday on Halftime. Alyssa, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, and congratulations on a Dolphins win. It seems like we're congratulating you on wins for your teams over the last few weeks. It's not Florida State, Dodgers, and Dolphins can take the cake instead.
Yes. Thank you. Happy Tuesday to you. Yesterday was good. Very exciting. Win number 3 for the Dolphins. But I have to tell you, ever since the Dodgers won the World Series, I've kind of just checked out on everybody else. So it was a very pleasant surprise that they won last night.
It's very European of you. You go to Europe, and then I get it. That's cool.
I've checked out. Sorry.
Hey, give me a thought on last night's women's basketball game in Little Rock. Really kind of just, it was one of the uglier halves I'd seen the first half, with just 18 points and more turnovers than points at some times. But I was impressed the way they came back. I think Little Rock had issues with shooting and certainly free throws, but 11-0 in overtime. I think getting out of there was. Yeah. I wonder if they're more relieved than they are celebrating, though.
I think so. And I think this team is just continuing to figure each other out and figure out how to play together and figure out the game. We've talked about that because you have so many European players on there. But I've never questioned, and I don't think my neighbors would disagree, that the heart and the want to and the willingness of these players to have success is there. They've just got to figure it all out. And it hasn't been the prettiest basketball these first 3 games, but they continue to just play as best as they can, and to be able to get a win against a good Little Rock team last night in overtime, I think is going to teach them a lot moving forward. There is still a lot of room for growth, and there is a lot of things that they have to work on. But again, you're piling wins on top of each other now, which is good to see. I mean, Mike even said it after they won at elementary school day last Friday. They haven't won in a long time. And that feeling just alone pays dividends sometimes for a team like them that are putting all these new pieces together. So it was good to see them go on the road and get that win, because as we know, that Little Rock team under Larry Foley, and of course he retired, his longtime assistant took over, has always been a very competitive, good team down there.
What do you think about the men's team and the Baylor game? Obviously 3-point shooting right now is an issue for Arkansas, maybe a couple of defensive things. I think it's more a matter of you need Adu healthy. I think they need Janelle Davis healthy. Look, I understand there's going to be bumps and bruises and all of that stuff, but they're going to be at their best when those two guys are healthy as well.
Yeah, I agree. I've watched bits and pieces of that game. I haven't been able to sit down and watch it fully start to finish, only because I enjoyed my Saturday evening as a lovely guest at a dinner party with a friend, which was awesome. So I didn't watch the basketball game, but I have seen bits and pieces. And I think just overall, when you're looking at what this team is trying to do, healthy Jonas Adu is good and John L. Davis, but you're also still trying to figure out where guys are going to play. Calipari's been so complimentary of Billy Richmond these first 2 couple of games. Are we going to see him more kind of intricate, like get himself into that point guard position as another option? Defensively, he's one of the best guys that they had. And we also know that Cal really focuses on defense. One of the things that Courtney and I and Mike were talking about yesterday in the office was that he focuses so much on conditioning early on in these defensive schemes, and offense will get there, but they're just making sure that they can continue to work on those little things defensively, and then that guys aren't tired. I mean, he mentioned that against Lipscomb, that you could see that Adu Fierro was just kind of getting tired. And he's got to condition these guys for a long, long basketball season. So, obviously you'd want a lot back from that game. But at the same time, it's so early. It's game number 2, and really game number 4 for them, but game number 2 that counts. And I don't see anyone needing to hit any kind of panic button right now.
Hey, Alyssa, when I watch this team, which I've only seen the team play 1 game, and so going forward, I think our bigs are better than our guards, and I like our guards. I'm not saying our guards aren't good or anything like that, but I really do think if you think of Thiero and Big C. That's how we got to run our offense, and then we have to play defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think you can add Trevin Brazil in there because he's such an interesting dynamic with this team, right? Because right now he's coming off the bench, and he's a guy that has such a high ceiling and such great athleticism that you add him in there with Adu and Big Z, that it can really be something special right there with those bigs. They just have to figure it all out. But they're still just learning to play with each other. These are guys who barely have been able to practice together, nonetheless playing a real game together, right? But I think you're right in terms of that's where they're going to have a lot of successes down in that paint once they can get all three of those guys in the right location.
What'd you take away from Sam's press conference yesterday? How confident are you in their ability to hang with Texas and maybe pull off an upset Saturday?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting what he talked about in the secondary and talking about that competition being wide open with the safeties in the corners. I think that was my biggest takeaway, is what does that look like? And if they did open it up, like they say, and the competition has been there all throughout that bye week, what are things going to look like on Saturday? Are they still going to stick with the same guys that they had been, which we've just seen such a lull back there? Or are we going to see something to change it up? Because quite frankly, I don't know why you wouldn't try something new. And like Sam mentioned, and again, it's him continuing to learn and evolve as a coach, him saying we don't want to trend like we trended last year, where we started so well defensively, and then we started to trail off. So are they going to make those true changes? That could be a difference. That's what I'm really looking at. I want to see exactly who's playing back there in that secondary against Texas, because what we saw against Ole Miss was awful. And you can't do that and beat a Texas team. So that was my biggest takeaway yesterday, listening to Sam in that press conference.
Were you the one that asked the question about?
I did.
The question, right? The question that Sam answered about where he questioned the team's effort against Ole Miss, which I guess I didn't expect to hear that from Sam. But was that your question? I thought it was.
Well, yeah, I asked him about the secondary and some changes or adjustments that they made or are going to try to make because of the way that these last couple games have gone. Like, even though they beat Mississippi State the way that they did, you look at that second half, and Mississippi State had a lot of opportunities in the secondary because they almost kind of stopped playing. And that's what he meant against Ole Miss. Like, they were playing well against LSU, but they just had some bad assignments and some missed tackling until the end. Against Mississippi State, I think his point was just like, I don't think guys were dialed in, and I don't think our effort was where it needed to be. And so how do you change that? Well, do you say, okay, well, that's fine. We're going to open up competition and see who else we can rotate back in here and see if there are any changes. But, yeah, that's what he said when I asked him about the secondary.
What do you think, Alyssa, do they prioritize tackling or covering? Like, if you're looking for our D-backs, do we want them to be able to tackle, or do we want them to be able to cover going forward?
Yeah, I would hope tackling, I think. I mean, we've seen so many times that missed tackles have led to such bigger plays than they needed to be, and that's been the issue. And it's been the issue for a handful of years, I think. And it's different guys, too. But you've got to be able to bring these guys down, and you've got to be able to stop them. Because, busted coverage, it kind of goes hand in hand, and you want to be at the right place at the right time and be able to read the offense as well. But just because you covered them doesn't mean you can take them to the ground. You got to be able to tackle them. So it doesn't matter if you're in the right spot. If you can't tackle them, it doesn't even matter.
Well, and the coverage wasn't great the last time we saw them go out there, too. So in some ways, it almost feels like 6 and 1/2 the other.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. You play coverage hanging back so that the LSU receivers don't get past you. And you get 10-yarded to death. And then the Ole Miss game was the Ole Miss game, and it was a completely other direction. So, I wouldn't blame them for feeling like I'm just not quite sure what we can try here because it didn't work either way.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's where you just kind of have to go back to the drawing board. And Sam made a good point. I mean, you've got guys who are in your 2 deep and maybe even your 3 deep that are looking at the tape and being like, well, wait a second. I've been giving effort at practice. I've been busting my butt. I've been trying to earn a spot. Like, when am I going to get my opportunity? And this might be it.
I guess, it's only 3 games left. Hey, there's some folks who, I don't know much about hip surgery, but, I find out yesterday that you walk out of the hospital. It takes a little bit of time to recover and everything and just be able to stand upon standing and maybe stand on a sideline and coach a game and everything. But, there are some folks who are viewing, Sam having this hip replacement surgery, I guess the day after the Missouri game, or at least close enough after that, for a sign of one of 2 things. Like, one, they feel like it's left. But they feel like it's unserious because you get the portal opening and all of that stuff that's happening right after. But that's really a week after the surgery. And then there's others that are viewing this that it's a sign that he's going to retire. I don't know if I see it as either of them, because when I hear that you walk out of the hospital and the portal opens the week after, I think he can have the meetings he needs to have. It doesn't sound like, look, it's not the kind of thing where you're laid up at the hospital for a week or 2 weeks. You actually walk out of the hospital that day. But this also, to me, plays into a lot of the narrative that some fans want to believe, either that Sam is not going to be the coach after this year and it's going to be his decision, or that he's making decisions that don't fit into the college football calendar. And I don't know. I don't see it that way.
No, and here's the deal. With anything like that with Sam, and I appreciated Sam being real with us about exactly what's going on. He said 100 and some days ago, I realized my hip just kind of went out, and I've got bone on bone. It's uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I'm counting down the days so I get this hip surgery, and I think he said it was 19. And he said, it's my understanding I'm going to go in, I'm going to be able to walk out of the hospital, and I'm doing it when I decided that it's going to be the best and most appropriate time for the team and what's on, and all of those things. And I think that you just have to be, I appreciate the realness there and being able to be straightforward with what's going on, but everyone is going to make whatever he said into whatever narrative they want. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and try to be a fortune teller or act like I have any idea what's going to happen. It could go 100 different ways. He could just have the surgery and be fine and come back and coach the bowl game and continue to be the coach at the University of Arkansas. He could come back and maybe things not go as great, and he's not being able to be as mobile as he thought, but he's still the head coach at Arkansas. Or he gets to a point where he's like, you know what, I'm going to retire. We have no idea, but to speculate right now just feeds into whichever narrative people want to hear. And quite frankly, you can't argue with anyone because, the world that we live in right now, people believe what they want to believe, and you can sit here till you're blue in the face and tell them otherwise. And so until anything gets said, determined, or mentioned or not, Sam's having hip surgery, guys. It's happening in 19 days.
Well, it even sounds, just listening to him talk, it sounds like he's in pain. So oh my gosh.
Hey. Well, you can see, I remember, I believe we were at Mississippi State, and he was getting after the press conference, like Hunter came over and kind of helped him up a little bit. Like, I know he's in an uncomfortable spot. And he was like, 28 more days. Like, it is tough, and I get it. And so, let the man have hip surgery and leave him alone.
I'm kind of right there with you, Alyssa. And we'll leave you alone for the rest of the day. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you. In the best ways possible. Thank you.
Sports director from Pig Trail Nation, Alyssa Orange, with us every Tuesday on Halftime.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.